Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is time for another true crime video yet again, and today we will be talking about one of the most notorious and infuriating cases from South Korea. Today we will be talking about the Miryang gang rape case. Alright, so as in so many South Korean cases, the names of the people involved are not publicized or in this case no longer available to the public. But this case begins in June 2003 when a 14-year-old girl, a middle schooler whom we will be referring to as Chue, met a 16-year-old boy online. We will be referring to this boy as Park. So as I have mentioned, these two met online. 14-year-old Chue was from Ulsan while 16-year-old Park was from Miryang. And after months of talking, Park was finally able to convince Chue to come and visit him in Miryang. And I guess since these two have already been talking for at least 6 to 7 months already, Chue trusted Park enough to agree to visiting him in his hometown. And this is exactly what she did sometime in January 2004. She rode a bus to Miryang to come and meet up with her online friend or boyfriend. I'm not really sure what the nature of their relationship was prior to meeting up, but as soon as Park spotted her, he started to lead her to a dark building. And as soon as they got inside and she turned her back on him, Park suddenly hit the girl with an iron pipe over the head, causing her to lose consciousness. Now, when she regained consciousness, Chue found herself inside a motel room with 12 teenage boys, who eventually took turns in raping her. One of those boys was 16-year-old Park. And even worse, they even started filming everything. And once the whole ordeal was done, they threatened the poor girl, saying that if she came forward to the police or told anyone about what had just happened, they were going to upload all of her videos online. They then allowed Chue to go home. However, this was just the beginning of it all. And I know what some of you might think. Well, why didn't she tell her parents? Why didn't she ask for help? Sadly, Chue had no one to run to. Her father was an alcoholic and was very abusive to her mother, Chue herself, and her little sister. And because of how abusive the father was, her mother left and never looked back. And because the boys had these videos of Chue being assaulted, they used this to blackmail her into coming back to Miryang. And this happened multiple times within a span of a year. She went there many times and would be violated at least 10 times per visit. At one point, they even forced her to bring her 13-year-old little sister and 16-year-old cousin along with her. And Chue felt like she had no other choice but to comply, because if those videos got leaked, it would ruin her future. Now, I am not sure if her little sister and her cousin were also sexually violated or assaulted. However, they were beaten up just for fun. And even though Chue did everything that she could so her videos wouldn't be released, the boys still uploaded these videos online, and Chue went into a deep depression. She eventually made an attempt to end her own life by taking a bunch of pills. However, this attempt was unsuccessful because she was brought to the hospital in time to get her stomach pumped. And while she was in the hospital, a doctor took notice of small injuries that were all over Chue's body. She was basically covered in cuts and bruises. So he decided to examine her and confirmed that she had been recently assaulted before she tried to commit suicide. And he, of course, told her family. Chue's aunt then reported this to the police. And take note that it was her aunt and not her father who tried to do something about this situation. Her home life was that bad. Now, once the police started investigating Che's case, they found 5 more victims who were also sexually assaulted and tortured by this group of boys, whom they discovered were actually a part of a notorious teen gang in Miryang. Now, these boys were a menace to society. They were pretty well known in their area as troublemakers and were feared. However, nothing had really been done to punish them or teach them a lesson. They've done so many things, and yet no one has been held accountable. Not one of the boys, nor one of their parents. Now, Che and these 5 girls were able to pinpoint who did what to them. However, for some unknown, ridiculous reason, the boys were not apprehended for this. And this caused a nationwide outrage. The public were putting more and more pressure on the police to have these boys arrested and charged. But for some reason, the case was just not moving. Infuriated by the situation, some of the authorities assigned to the case decided to leak information to the media, and this intel would soon identify who these boys were, or at least who some of them were. Now, during this investigation, it was also discovered that a total of 44 boys took turns in violating and torturing Che over the course of a year. 44 boys. And when the media released information about the identity of these boys to the public, instead of admitting their crimes and apologizing to their victims, these boys and their parents even had the audacity to blackmail and threaten Che even further. And she was, as you can imagine, extremely traumatized by this and didn't trust anyone anymore, especially men. So Chue requested for her to be questioned by female officers only. However, this too was also denied. She was then questioned by a male police officer, and the first thing that he asked her was if she seduced the boys and if she did anything to deserve what happened to her. He was putting the blame on this 14-year-old girl, and this just makes me so angry. I despise people who victim blame, and sadly there are still so many people who have this mentality that when a girl or a woman dresses a certain way, she's asking for it. Or if she meets up with a guy, she probably deserves it. No one deserves to be assaulted, period. Especially Chue, she was a 14-year-old girl who trusted a boy that she's been talking to for months. That was her only mistake. Trusting Park was her only mistake. And yeah, she willingly went to this guy's hometown. But did she really deserve to be violated by 44 boys? She definitely did not deserve any of that. Chue was also put in the same room as her attackers. And this was very traumatizing for her. They all calmly sat there, staring her in the eyes as if they had done nothing wrong. They all looked at her as if she was nothing. While the investigation was ongoing, Chue's mental and physical health just kept on deteriorating, and after many suicide attempts, she was finally put in a closed psychiatric ward where she would finally get some peace and help. However, this peace would not last very long either. Her alcoholic father visited her often. However, he would not come alone. And it wasn't because he cared about his daughter's well-being. He would go there along with the boys' parents to try and get Chue to sign a settlement agreement. And after multiple visits, she had finally had enough and signed away. She was then awarded 50 million won by the parents of the perpetrators. However, she never saw a dime of this because her father and other close relatives pocketed all the money. Now, the parents also tried to get her to sign a petition for leniency, but she declined. And after she was released from this psychiatric ward, she decided to go back to school and fix her life. However, another obstacle came. Going back to school wouldn't be easy either, since the information about her case was released to the public. She was well known in their area as the girl who was raped by 44 boys. And although she was obviously the victim here, numerous schools decided to decline her application, saying that they don't accept rape victims as students, which is just vile in my opinion. But eventually, she was able to find a school that sympathized with her. She got back in school and was now in high school, I believe. She was trying to fix her life and work for her future. However, news started to spread and people eventually found out where she was studying. The boys' parents started showing up to her new school and to harass her on campus into signing the petition for leniency, and of course, she was still firm on not doing that. She again felt like she had no choice and dropped out of school because of this harassment. And if this case wasn't infuriating enough, most of the charges against these 44 boys were dropped, and only 10 of them were formally accused of sexual assault. These 10 were facing only 2 to 4 year sentences or a 3-year probation. And the reason behind this was that most of the boys had already gotten accepted to college or already had jobs. And of course, putting them on trial on juvenile court would affect their futures. But what about Tre's future? No one seemed to care about that. And in terms of the boys who were supposed to face charges, those charges were also dropped. The judge refused to charge them because of the 50 million won in settlement that was accepted by Tre's father. Now, 5 out of the 10 boys were cleared of all charges, while the remaining 5 were sent to a juvenile detention center to serve an extremely short sentence despite everything that they did to Chue and those 5 other girls. Now, it has been 2 decades since this all happened, and I have no idea what happened to Chue afterwards. Now, I'm just hoping that she's still alive and well, and I hope that she somehow moves on from this very traumatic experience in her life. Now, honestly, I can't even wrap my head around the fact that even though there was enough evidence to put 44 boys in juvenile prison, only 5 of them received some sort of punishment. Most of them were able to go to university and continue with their lives. I'm wondering if their wives or their kids even know about this. And this is just something that I don't get when it comes to South Korean crimes or South Korean laws. I mean, I'm all for protecting the victim. If the victim doesn't want their name out in public, that's fine. However, why protect the perpetrators? Why hide their identities? They don't really deserve the protection, and they definitely do not deserve to live normal lives after the crimes that they have committed. But again, that's just my 2 cents on that. As usual, I would love to hear your thoughts on this case, and should there be any other cases that you would like for me to cover in this channel, please let me know by leaving a comment. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on my next video.